At 30,000 feet, where the clouds drift like unspoken worries and the world below feels distant enough to forget, Asterisk Nonstop Asterisk opens with a quiet tension that feels almost biological, the kind of fear that rises from inside the bones rather than the mind. The movie understands that an A-plane is more than a machine. It is a fragile, floating ecosystem held together by faith, engineering, and human psychology. And in those first minutes, before the chaos, before the threats, before the unraveling, the film invites us into the life of an air marshal who has spent so many hours in the sky that gravity itself feels like a memory. From the very beginning, the film frames its story as a collision between emotion and logistics, a personal crisis unfolding within one of the most tightly regulated, financially optimized environments humanity has ever created. A commercial aircraft is not just a setting here. It is an operational marvel, a pressurized capsule rich with procedure, data, risk calculation, and engineering choreography. This is where the film finds its creative power. By turning an A-plane into a psychological and financial pressure cooker, the narrative becomes a study in what happens when human vulnerability disrupts mechanical certainty. Directed by Joan Collet-Serra, Asterisk Nonstop Asterisk was part of a growing trend in early 2010s Hollywood, the rise of mid-budget, high-efficiency action thrillers fronted by charismatic leads, designed to deliver maximum emotional return on relatively modest financial input. With a production budget of around $50 million, approximate ***, the movie exemplifies the studio philosophy of creating compact, self-contained suspense experiences that appeal to international audiences. This approach treats cinema like portfolio management, spreading risk across multiple mid-sized bets rather than pursuing only massive blockbusters. The result is a film that balances adrenaline, psychology, and cost efficiency with remarkable precision. Liam Neeson, by this point, had carved out a distinct cinematic identity, the grounded, wounded, highly capable man fighting a quiet battle with himself while navigating threats that escalate with mathematical certainty. His presence anchors the film emotionally while also operating as a marketable asset, a form of box office insurance. Casting Neeson was both an artistic decision and a financial calculation. International distributors respond strongly to star consistency, and Neeson's rising popularity in the thriller genre gave Nonstop Asterisk a built-in audience. In investment terms, he was the film's premium hedge. The narrative premise is deceptively simple. Bill Marks, a troubled U.S. Air Marshal, receives a series of anonymous text messages threatening that a passenger will be killed every 20 minutes unless $150 million is transferred to an offshore account. This setup fuses narrative tension with economic stakes, a life-or-death extortion plot unfolding in real time within a confined environment where time is capital. Every second is a resource, every decision has an opportunity cost, and every passenger becomes a potential liability. Structurally, the film mimicked a market under stress, where unexpected volatility tests the limits of system protocols. The first act deploys tension like a startup deploying early R&D. We observe character prototypes, assess their emotional architecture, and witness the testing of interpersonal systems. Each passenger interaction becomes a data point. Each suspicious glance becomes a behavioral anomaly. Marx becomes not only a protagonist, but an investigator parsing human signals the way analysts parse market noise. The movie's storytelling efficiency is built on this premise: limited space, limited variables, and maximum psychological friction. What makes Nonstop Asterisk uniquely engaging is the way it transformed communication technology into a weapon. The anonymous messages, appearing on Marx's secure network, become tools of emotional manipulation and operational disruption. In a broader cinematic context, the film reflects a cultural moment when digital communication was rapidly reshaping trust, privacy, and threat perception. In this sense, the movie is not just an action thriller. It is a commentary on how data flow becomes both a lifeline and a liability in high-stakes environments. The airplane itself represents a marvel of engineering efficiency, a floating microeconomy where every inch of space, every watt of power, every ounce of fuel is calculated. And into this meticulously optimized system, the film inserts chaos. The tension comes not only from the looming threat, but from the disruption of routine. Airlines operate on cost control, punctuality, and redundancy. A security breach threatens more than lives. It threatens the operational stability of an entire industry. In this sense, the film captures the intersection of aviation economics and emotional engineering, inviting us to consider how fear can destabilize even the most finely tuned systems. As the threat grows, the story expands into a layered exploration of trust. Passengers become suspects, crew become reluctant allies, and Marx becomes a man fighting not only an unseen enemy but his own unraveling credibility. This dynamic transforms the film into a study of behavioral economics, how people respond when trapped in a high-pressure environment with asymmetric information. Panic becomes contagious. Assumptions become currency. Perception becomes leverage. Industry context also plays a key role. In 2014, aviation-themed thrillers carried both commercial potential and cultural sensitivity. Audiences were fascinated by the vulnerability of air travel, yet still wary of narratives that touch too closely on real-world anxieties. **** navigates this line with precision, choosing to focus on suspense rather than spectacle, psychological tension rather than disaster imagery. In doing so, it demonstrates how strategic restraint can expand a film's accessibility without diminishing its impact. The movie's tight runtime and escalating structure were designed for global markets, where audience preferences demand clear stakes, fast pacing, and emotional clarity. The film's distribution strategy leaned on this universality. The fear of entrapment, the suspicion of strangers, and the thrill of uncovering a hidden threat are concepts that transcend borders. This global resonance helped turn a modest production into a financial success, ultimately earning nearly $220 million worldwide, approximate ***, demonstrating how a film's emotional architecture can become an engine for commercial momentum. Ultimately, **** positions itself as more than just an airborne thriller. It becomes a case study in how Hollywood merges emotional storytelling with financial intelligence and technological relevance. It reminds us that suspense is a delicate equilibrium of human psychology and mechanical precision, and that even in the vastness of the sky, the greatest turbulence often comes from within. The first half of **** unfolds with a quiet, almost surgical build-up, the kind that understands suspense not as noise but as pressure that slowly enters a room like a rising cabin altitude warning. We begin with Bill Marx moving through the airport, a man whose exhaustion is not just physical but existential. His posture, his ritualistic movements, the soft tremble in his breath, everything signals a man already fighting invisible turbulence before he even boards a plane. In these opening beats, the film sets up emotional stakes long before the narrative stakes appear. Marx is a character carrying psychological debt, and the story wastes no time positioning him as someone for whom every new flight is a negotiation with himself. As passengers begin boarding, the movie shifts into its first pattern of information gathering. The camera introduces faces, gestures, micro-behaviors, the kind of subtle observational data an air marshal would naturally absorb. Every detail becomes a data point, not yet meaningful but stored in the viewer's memory like early-stage R&D in a startup. The film teaches us to watch closely, to notice the way a glance lingers too long or the way a handshake pulls too quickly. The airplane cabin becomes a psychological laboratory, each passenger a variable in a yet unidentified algorithm of threat and motive. Once the plane reaches cruising altitude, the narrative begins tightening its grip. Marx receives a first anonymous message on his secure network, a calm but chilling line stating that someone on the plane will die every 20 minutes unless $150 million is transferred. The brilliance of this setup lies in its dual nature. It is both a financial threat and an emotional one. Money here becomes a tool of manipulation, a symbol of power that turns an A-plane into a pressure chamber of incentives. The villain weaponizes economics, using a transaction as a psychological chokehold. This is suspense rooted in behavioral engineering. The antagonist understands that numbers can be more frightening than bullets when delivered at 30,000 feet. Marx reacts with the urgency of someone accustomed to crisis but still vulnerable to doubt. He attempts to alert his TSA contacts, to verify system integrity, to assess whether the threat is a hoax. But in these early exchanges, the film reveals the underlying tragedy of his character, a man whose credibility is fraying. His alcoholism, his fraying professionalism, his personal grief all create cracks where suspicion can leak in. The plot uses these vulnerabilities not as exposition, but as structural pressure points. Every action he takes is an opportunity cost, not only operationally but emotionally. As Marx begins covert surveillance around the cabin, the film uses his movements to guide the viewer's suspicion. Each passenger becomes a potential suspect. The nervous programmer tapping anxiously on his phone, the calm schoolteacher who seems too composed, the talkative man who hides a sharpness beneath his friendliness. The audience is placed in Marx's psychological seat, evaluating, misjudging, recalibrating. This mirrors the early design phase of a high-risk project, where prototypes look promising or dangerous based on incomplete data. The movie leverages this uncertainty beautifully, allowing tension to rise without revealing too much. When Marx approaches a co-pilot and captain to inform them of the threat, the tone shifts again. Airplanes are governed by layers of protocol, and every disturbance represents not only a safety risk but a financial one. Diverting a flight costs money. Alerting authorities triggers penalties, investigations, and cascading operational disruptions. The first half of the plot uses this economic reality to amplify the stakes. Marx is not simply chasing a villain. He is negotiating with an entire system designed to minimize irregularities. The captain's skepticism, the crew's guarded cooperation, the quiet tension among passengers all create the sense that Marx is fighting not just a threat but the architecture of aviation itself. The 20-minute countdown becomes a narrative metronome. As the clock approaches the first deadline, Marx becomes more frantic, more reactive, more desperate to find patterns in human behavior. He locks onto a passenger who appears suspicious, a man who repeatedly glances at Marx, who seems to be hiding something. The scene culminates in a confrontation inside the lavatory, a tight, breathless sequence where the camera compresses space to reflect the narrowing emotional bandwidth of the moment. The fight is less about brutality and more about paranoia crashing into reality. When the passenger dies during the struggle, the movie reveals how the villain manipulates circumstances to frame Marx as a threat. The death is not proof of progress. It is proof that Marx is being outmaneuvered. This moment marks the first narrative pivot. Suddenly, the system begins turning against Marx. Reports leak to the ground. Airline authorities begin questioning his mental state. Passengers whisper, creating a microeconomy of rumor and fear. The villain's strategy becomes clearer: destabilize the protector, transfer suspicion, and weaponize perception. This transforms the plot into a behavioral economics experiment, demonstrating how quickly trust can collapse when a single authority figure appears compromised. The first half of the movie becomes a lesson in how fear spreads faster than information in enclosed systems. As Marx continues the investigation, the second death occurs, another confirmation that the threat is real and that the antagonist is 2 steps ahead. Each death is a transaction in a dark ledger. The villain trades human life for panic, operational disruption, and emotional disorientation. The financial demand is not the true objective. It is scaffolding for something deeper, something ideological or psychological. But in the first half, the film wisely withholds this clarity, allowing suspense to metabolize slowly through uncertainty. The midpoint arrives as Marx uncovers that the bank account for the ransom has been registered under his own name. This is the moment where the thriller becomes a trap. The villain has weaponized financial infrastructure to frame him entirely, creating a narrative in which Marx is not a savior but a hijacker. This twist amplifies the film's thematic core, the idea that data can be manipulated as easily as emotion. In a single revelation, Marx becomes both hunter and hunted, both trusted and accused. This is narrative efficiency at its finest, a shift that deepens tension while tightening the plot's structural integrity. As the first half ends, Marx finds himself isolated, doubted, and increasingly desperate. The airplane cabin feels smaller, the air feels thinner, and the film transitions from observational suspense to active crisis. The plot has extracted maximum emotional return from minimal space, using timing, psychology, and financial manipulation to create a perfect storm at 30,000 feet. The threat is no longer theoretical. It is a living force inside the aircraft, one that has turned every protocol, every relationship, and every assumption against the man meant to protect them all. The second half of **** picks up with a sharper, almost suffocating intensity as the narrative tightens around Bill Marx like a precious suit shrinking mid-flight. Where the first half establishes uncertainty, the latter half weaponizes it. Marx becomes a man running out of air, time, and social credit simultaneously. Every eye in the cabin is now trained on him, each glance carrying the weight of judgment. He moves through the aisles not as protector but as a perceived threat, and this reversal becomes the emotional backbone of the second act. Suspense here is not driven by action but by the erosion of trust, the most fragile form of capital inside a sealed environment at 30,000 feet. Once the financial trap is revealed, the ransom account carrying Marx's own name, the film shifts gears into a psychological showdown. Marx must simultaneously investigate the threat and convince passengers and crew that he isn't the architect of their nightmare. This dual-layered tension operates like a business crisis where a CEO must fix a collapsing system while also proving they didn't cause a failure. The movie clearly understands the behavioral economics of panic. Narratives spread faster than facts, and once a group believes a story, reversing that belief is harder than disarming a bomb. The plane becomes a mini-market of fear, and Marx is a declining stock. As Marx interrogates passengers more aggressively, the film intentionally blurs the moral line between protector and oppressor. He is now driven by urgency rather than intuition, a pattern audiences can recognize from real-world crisis management failures. The higher the stress, the more decisions become reactive rather than strategic. The filmmakers use this to highlight his psychological unraveling. We begin to see his trauma surface, the alcoholism, the grief, the loneliness, all of which reduces bandwidth for nuance. These aren't excuses, they are stress multipliers. The second half thrives on this emotional realism, framing Marx not as a polished action hero but as a man duct-taping himself together while trying to prevent catastrophe. The threat escalates when a suspicious bag is discovered containing explosives rigged to blow at a specific altitude. This is where the plot fully commits to high-stakes engineering tension. The device is not just a weapon, it's a statement of technical sophistication. The villain demonstrates that they understand not only aviation mechanics, but also the psychology of escalation. Introducing a bomb at this stage forces Marx to shift from investigative mode to survival mode. The plane transforms from a crime scene into a countdown mechanism, and the audience feels every second compressing around the characters like the tightening hull of the aircraft. In these sequences, the film shows remarkable efficiency in blending physical space with emotional stakes. The cabin becomes a grid of variables: luggage compartments, seat pockets, oxygen masks, lavatories, each object a potential clue or threat. The editing becomes more rhythmic, reflecting an analytical mind working under duress. You can almost feel Marx performing mental arithmetic, passenger behavior patterns, timing anomalies, proximity correlations. The thriller's power comes from this interplay between intuition and data, showing how crisis solving requires both the emotional intelligence to read people and the technical intelligence to read systems. When Marx finally pieces together the truth, that the hijacking is orchestrated not for ransom but to expose weaknesses in post-9/11 security systems, the film reveals its ideological spine. The villain's motivations are rooted in grievance and disillusionment, twisting trauma into justification for violence. This reframes the entire narrative through the lens of psychological economics. How individuals respond to collective trauma, how fear becomes a currency, and how ideology can be as destructive as weaponry. The antagonist's plan is less about money and more about manufacturing chaos to make a point, a tactic familiar in behavioral studies of extremism. As Marx zeroes in on the actual culprits, tension escalates into a claustrophobic frenzy. The villain's identity isn't a simple reveal. It's a culmination of dozens of micro-clues the film has threaded throughout the cabin. The reveal scenes unfold with the rhythm of an audit. Piece by piece, false lead eliminated, inconsistencies exposed. The antagonist's logic is laid bare, and we understand that the earlier manipulation wasn't improvisational but strategic. The villain constructed a narrative blueprint, using passengers, technology, and timing as inputs in a psychological algorithm. This intricate structure gives the second half its intellectual weight. The confrontation with the primary antagonist is explosive not just physically but emotionally. Marx fights not only to save the plane but to reclaim his own fractured reputation. In these moments, the action carries symbolic meaning. Each punch thrown and each failed breath represents a small step toward redemption. The bomb's timer becomes a metaphor for Marx's internal countdown, a life collapsing under stress unless courage intervenes. This dual-layered design allows the film to satisfy action thriller expectations while also delivering emotional resonance. The eventual detonation, controlled and partially mitigated, delivers one of the film's most visually intense spectacles. The blast tears through the cabin, sending oxygen masks dropping and passengers screaming, yet Marx's quick action prevent total catastrophe. This sequence highlights a recurring theme, the thin line between failure and survival, between chaos and control. From a production standpoint, the sequence is a masterclass in budget optimization, a contained blowout inside a single set allowing maximum visual impact without requiring multiple locations or sprawling CGI. It's a high ROI moment in terms of both spectacle and emotional payoff. As the plane descends violently toward the ground, the film leans fully into sensory immersion. The turbulence, the alarms, the fragments of debris turning into airborne shrapnel, everything is engineered to overwhelm the audience. And yet beneath this chaos lies a structured emotional arc. Marx's panic starts giving way to clarity. He begins issuing commands not as a desperate man, but as the air marshal he was always meant to be. This shift marks his transformation from reactive victim to strategic leader, giving the audience the satisfaction of seeing him reclaim his internal authority. The crash landing sequence is one of the film's most impressive technical achievements. With a modest budget compared to major disaster films, non-stop leverage tight angles, practical effects, and sharply timed sound design to create the sensation of imminent destruction. The scene is shot from the passenger's perspective rather than an exterior vantage, reinforcing the idea that this story is fundamentally about human experience under pressure. When the plane finally skids to a halt, smoke filling the cabin, the relief is almost physical. The film's closing moments deliver a controlled emotional release. Marx is cleared of suspicion. The surviving passengers view him with newfound respect, and for the first time we see a glimmer of peace in his posture. The ending doesn't tie every emotional thread neatly. Trauma never resolves that cleanly, but it gives Marx enough dignity to stand upright again. The final beat hints at the possibility of healing, signaling that the man who boarded the flight broken may now have a reason to rebuild. Bill Marx stands at the center of non-stop like a man stitched together by equal parts guilt, duty, and unresolved grief. In the landscape of action thriller protagonists, he is neither sleek nor invincible. Instead, he is portrayed as a deeply wounded man carrying psychological scar tissue that shapes every decision he makes aboard the doomed transatlantic flight. What makes Bill compelling is not his strength, but his fragility, a fragility that the film refuses to hide. From the opening moments, the camera lingers on the micro-expressions of exhaustion etched into his face, the habitual movements of someone managing emotional pain with alcohol and routine. Bill is not a hero in search of action. He is a man trying to survive himself, and the crisis on the plane becomes both a threat and an unexpected chance at redemption. At his core, Bill is a study in contradictions, an air marshal who fears flying, a protector who mistrusts people, a man tasked with providing safety who cannot maintain safety within his own life. This duality humanizes him and reframes a narrative from a simple hijacking thriller into a psychological dissection of trauma. His alcoholism is not used as a cliché plot device, but as a lens for understanding how his internal world operates. Every swig from the flask is both a coping mechanism and a signal of emotional depletion. The film invites viewers to consider how someone meant to embody authority might crumble under private burdens, and how psychological stress reduces decision-making bandwidth, a theme that resonates deeply in crisis psychology and behavioral economics. Bill's brokenness, however, is precisely what gives the story its emotional resonance. His vulnerability makes him unpredictable, both to the passengers and to the audience. His trauma is not presented as past tense, it's active, circulating through his nervous system with every interaction. This ongoing struggle adds depth to his investigative choices. His instincts are strong, but his judgment is clouded. His interpersonal skills are functional but brittle. The film cleverly blurs the line between his trauma responses and the objective danger around him, creating a layered uncertainty that fuels the plot. We are never fully certain whether he is losing control or simply fighting against an impossible situation. The interactions Bill has with passengers offer crucial insight into his personality. He is curt, direct, and often abrasive, not because he wants to intimidate, but because he has lost the emotional elasticity needed for social nuance. When he interrogates suspects, there is a desperation behind his sternness, the sense of a man who no longer trusts his instinct for human behavior. This dynamic reflects the psychological reality that chronic stress impairs empathy and increases cognitive rigidity. Bill is functioning on borrowed emotional credit, and the film shows how quickly those reserves deplete as the situation escalates. Bill's relationship with Jen Summers, the woman seated next to him, provides one of the film's most meaningful emotional counterbalances. Jen becomes the audience's surrogate, observing Bill's unraveling with caution and curiosity. Through their exchanges, we see Bill's softer layers flicker, a hint of warmth, a quiet confession, a moment of connection that feels almost accidental. Jen does not cure or redeem him, but she offers something rare, non-judgmental presence. Her willingness to stay near him when the cabin turns against him becomes a subtle yet powerful statement about the value of trust in crisis environments. Behavioral research shows that cooperative bonds can stabilize decision-making under extreme pressure, and this dynamic illustrates that principle beautifully. As the stakes rise, Bill's greatest internal battle becomes evident, his fight against self-doubt. The villain's strategy targets this exact psychological vulnerability, framing Bill as the architect of the hijacking and using the passenger's suspicions to amplify his inner insecurity. This tactic reveals that the antagonist understands not just security protocols but human weakness. Bill's challenge, then, is not merely to outsmart the villain but to overcome his own collapsing sense of identity. The crisis forces him to confront the question he fears most, whether he is still capable of doing good in the world. What elevates Bill Marx from a typical action hero to a fully realized character is a gradual shift in his emotional posture. At the beginning, his movements are slouched, his speech weighed down by resignation, his gaze unfocused. As the crisis intensifies, something unexpected happens. The pressure begins burning away his emotional fog. His instincts sharpen, his purpose clarifies, and he begins to operate with a mixture of desperation and renewed conviction. It is as if the extreme environment strips him of everything but the core attributes that once made him a dedicated marshal. The transformation is subtle but profound. He goes from a man trying to quiet his pain to a man trying to rise above it. Bill's leadership style under duress is another fascinating dimension of his character. He is not charismatic in the conventional sense. He does not inspire through charm or eloquence. Instead, he commands through urgency, determination, and the raw authenticity of someone willing to take blows for others. His leadership is functional and instinctive, shaped by experience rather than confidence. In many ways, he resembles a crisis manager thrust into an operational meltdown, forced to navigate collapsing systems, misinformation, and emotional volatility while maintaining focus on the ultimate objective. His ability to function under such psychological pressure underscores a deeper realism. Heroes often emerge not because they feel strong, but because they act despite feeling broken. The turning point for Bill arrived during his con. At first glance, **** presents itself as a high-altitude thriller anchored in tension, suspicion, and rapid-fire stakes. But beneath the urgency lies a network of themes that give the film emotional weight and psychological texture. The story is less about a hijacking and more about the internal catastrophes that shape people long before danger becomes visible. The film explores how grief calcifies inside the human mind, how trust is constructed and dismantled in seconds, and how systems built for protection can quickly turn into cages of doubt. What makes these themes compelling is how seamlessly they integrate with the film's technical and narrative design, creating a tapestry where emotional depth and kinetic pacing enhance one another rather than compete for attention. The most dominant theme is ***, the burden of unresolved trauma ***. Bill Marx enters a story already defeated, his emotional framework eroded by years of carrying grief he has never processed. The film shows trauma not as a distant memory but as a living force, something that infiltrates daily routines, reshapes identity, and narrows the ability to connect with others. Every choice Bill makes is filtered through the lens of a man trying to outrun his own mind. The hijacking doesn't trigger his trauma, it exposes it. His reactions, hypervigilance, irritability, impatience, distrust, mirror the psychological patterns of someone living inside chronic emotional exhaustion. The filmmakers tie this theme to the thriller mechanics, making his internal instability a vital narrative engine. Alongside trauma lies a second major theme, ***, the fragility of trust ***. Few environments test human cooperation as sharply as a SEAL plane with a suspected killer on board. The film uses the enclosed space as a psychological laboratory. Every passenger becomes a variable, every gesture potential threat, every expression a data point Bill must evaluate. Trust becomes both a weapon and a casualty. The film examines how quickly public confidence deteriorates in crisis situations and how suspicion spreads faster than information. This dynamic reflects real-world behavioral economics. When uncertainty increases, people default to fear-based heuristics. The plane becomes a floating micro-society where everyone negotiates risk, identity, and morality in real time. A third theme emerges through Bill's interactions with authority, ***, institutional failure, and public disillusionment, ***. Early in the film, Bill is already questioning the value of the system he serves. His colleagues view him with skepticism, the passengers distrust him instinctively, and the media, when it becomes involved, casts him as a villain. This breakdown mirrors larger conversations about institutional reliability in modern society. The villain's motives, rooted in cynicism toward government security measures, further underscore this commentary. The film does not lean into political critique, but instead approaches the issue from a psychological and humanistic angle. What happens when the people tasked with protecting others no longer believe in their own purpose? Another subtle yet powerful theme is ***, the mathematics of doubt ***. Throughout the film, Bill is forced to make decisions with incomplete information, mirroring real-world decision theory. He must evaluate probabilities under extreme pressure. Who is lying? Who is frightened? Who is masking hostility? Who is simply reacting to chaos? Each misjudgment carries catastrophic consequences. The narrative becomes a study in cognitive load, how stress constricts rational thinking and accelerates emotional reasoning. The editing and shot composition reinforce this theme by constantly shifting perspectives, ensuring the viewer feels the same uncertainty Bill navigates. Beneath the tension lies a quieter theme about ***, redemption through action ***. Bill does not seek redemption at the outset. He believes he is beyond saving. But as the crisis escalates, he is forced to reckon with the possibility that his life still holds meaning. His desperate fight to save the passengers becomes a metaphor for confronting his own grief. He can no longer numb his pain through routine or alcohol. The situation demands presence, clarity, and conviction. The film suggests that redemption is rarely emotional at first. It is behavioral. Bill's courage becomes an act of rediscovering self-worth, not through epiphany but through sustained effort. There is also the theme of ***, identity under pressure ***. The passengers project assumptions onto one another, influenced by appearance, accent, posture, and micro-behaviors. Even Bill is misread repeatedly. By forcing characters into a confined space, the film strips everyone of social performance and reveals how fragile identity becomes when fear takes over. This touches on social psychology. Under threat, people rely on stereotypes and snap judgments, reducing individuals to perceived categories. The film uses this tension to highlight how difficult it is for truth to survive in an environment shaped by panic. The story further explores ***, moral responsibility in crisis ***. Bill must choose between transparency and protecting the operational reality of the situation. He must lie to passengers to prevent chaos, isolate individuals who may be innocent, and occasionally cross lines that would be unacceptable under normal circumstances. The villain weaponizes this ambiguity, turning Bill's protective actions into evidence of wrongdoing. This interplay forces viewers to consider how morality changes when stakes escalate. Crisis ethics is not clean. It is filled with compromises, half-truths, and instinct-driven decisions. Bill's arc illustrates how leadership in emergencies often requires absorbing blame, misunderstanding, and hostility while still pursuing the greater good. The theme of ***, human connection as a stabilizing force ***, is woven through Bill's fragile alliances with Jen, Nancy the flight attendant, and other passengers who begin to believe in him. These connections act as emotional anchors. They demonstrate that even in environments shaped by suspicion, the need for trust and cooperation remains fundamental. Behavioral research shows that supportive social presence can modulate fear responses and enhance decision-making. The film reflects this truth through moments where a single gesture of belief rekindles Bill's ability to think clearly. Finally, ***, carries a theme about ***, the cost of heroism ***. The film refuses to romanticize heroism as glamorous or triumphant. It shows heroism as emotionally taxing, physically draining, and morally ambiguous. Bill does not emerge unscarred. He emerges truthful. The narrative suggests that real heroism is not the absence of fear, but the decision to act amid overwhelming self-doubt. It's not rewarded with applause, but with a fragile sense of regained identity. From its opening frame, **** establishes a filmmaking language built on controlled tension, visual compression, and a deliberately claustrophobic rhythm. Unlike traditional action thrillers that rely on spectacle and wide-open arenas, this film does the opposite. It reduces the narrative space, tightens the visual field, and uses proximity as a primary source of suspense. Every artistic choice, from camera lenses to editing structure, is engineered to simulate the cognitive and emotional experience of being trapped in a pressurized cabin with danger hiding in plain sight. The movie is not simply shot. It is architected, designed with the precision of a psychological experiment, where each technical element contributes to the slow tightening of anxiety. The cinematography by Flavio Martinez Labiano leans heavily into visual restriction. This is evident in the frequent use of tight close-ups, lens compression, and shallow depth of field. These techniques intensify the feeling that the characters and the audience are running out of oxygen, space, and emotional bandwidth. The camera becomes an invasive observer, capturing micro-expressions, nervous hands, darting eyes, and subtle shift in posture. Labiano avoids wide establishing shots whenever possible, denying the viewer a sense of spatial certainty. This approach mirrors a thematic preoccupation with mistrust and psychological confinement. The audience knows exactly as much as Bill does, and no more, creating a narrative environment built on uncertainty. Much of the visual strategy involves handheld camera work, but not the chaotic version often found in modern action films. Instead, the handheld movement in **** is controlled, almost breathing with the characters. The slight sway and wobble evoke the natural motion of flight turbulence while reinforcing emotional instability. The camera behaves like an anxious passenger, observing the cabin with heightened alertness. Even static shots contain mild shifting, subtly stimulating the audience's fight-or-flight responses. This is filmmaking as psychological manipulation, executed with restraint and intention. Lighting in the film is another major contributor to tone. Airplanes are normally bright, uniformly lit environments, but here the lighting is softened, directional, and shadow-prone. The aisles are often dim enough to create pockets of mystery. Overhead lights flicker gently, casting uneven illumination that reflects the instability within the narrative. The film's color palette leans toward cool tones, grays, muted blues, desaturated neutrals, which reinforces the atmosphere of emotional fatigue and institutional sterility. Warm light becomes rare and symbolic. Moments of human connection often occur in slightly warmer hues, subtly guiding the viewer's emotional orientation. Editing is one of the film's most powerful storytelling tools. The pacing reflects the progressive contraction of time as Bill's situation becomes more desperate. Early scenes linger longer, allowing viewers to absorb the environment and Bill's baseline emotional state. As the crisis unfolds, the cuts become tighter and more rhythmic, mimicking the escalation of adrenaline. Editor Jim May uses cross-cutting to simulate Bill's fracturing attention. Passengers blur together as threats, creating a sense of disorganized urgency. The editing also leveraged misdirection, holding suspicious faces a second too long, delaying reaction shots, or cutting away just before revealing detail. These choices generate uncertainty not through complexity but through withholding, a technique reminiscent of Hitchcock's suspense design. Sound design plays a crucial role in maintaining constant tension. The hum of the aircraft cabin is slightly amplified, creating a sonic texture that mimics anxiety. Subtle rumbles, metallic clicks, and ambient murmurs are heightened to keep the viewer on edge. When Bill receives text messages from the unidentified antagonist, the phone's vibration is loud enough to feel like a threat in itself. Dialogue is mixed with intentional overlaps, reflecting the chaos of a crowded cabin. Small auditory cues, a zipper closing, a seatbelt clicking, a foot tapping, are foregrounded to keep viewers hyper-aware, mirroring Bill's state of mind. The soundscape is not merely background, it is an active participant in the narrative tension. Music composition by John Ottman blends atmospheric drones, rhythmic pulses, and escalating tones that build tension without overwhelming the action. Ottman smartly avoids heavy thematic scoring, opting instead for sound that feels like the psychological pulse of the story. During moments of high pressure, the music becomes almost indistinguishable from the sound design. Synth waves merge with cabin noise, blurring the line between internal and external stress. This approach supports the film's psychological realism. Fear is not melodic, it is felt as pressure, Ottman's restraint allows dread to simmer beneath the surface rather than dictate emotional responses overtly. Spatial blocking within the aircraft cabin deserves special recognition. In such a confined set, movement becomes symbolic. Bill's walks through the aisle function like emotional scans, each pass revealing new expressions, new anxieties, new opportunity for conflict. The blocking also reinforces power dynamics. When Bill confronts suspects, he often positions himself in the aisle while they remain seated, visually elevating him but emotionally isolating him. The film uses verticality in subtle ways. Characters who stand appear more threatening. Characters who remain seated seem vulnerable. This turns ordinary cabin interactions into psychological chess matches. Visual storytelling extends to the use of objects. Bill's phone becomes a conduit of dread. Seat pockets hide potential threats. The lavatory, a typically mundane location, becomes a chamber of suspicion. The filmmakers understand that, in a thriller set inside a plane, every object must carry narrative weight. Even oxygen masks and overhead compartments become visual symbols of tension. The production design team integrates these elements without exaggeration, maintaining a sense of realism while amplifying emotional stakes. What makes a filmmaking approach to non-stop particularly effective is that it aligns technical design with character storytelling. The visual compression mirrors Bill's internal turmoil. The editing rhythm reflects his escalating stress. The sound design magnifies his hypervigilance. The synergy between technique and character is what lifts a film beyond a standard thriller. It becomes a cinematic experience that simulates anxiety through craft, not just narrative. The viewer is not merely observing Bill's unraveling. They are experiencing it with him. Ultimately, the filmmaking techniques in non-stop serve a singular goal: to immerse the audience in a world where every second feels like a narrowing corridor of suspicion and pressure. The cinematography traps us. The editing agitates us. The sound design unsettles us. And together, these elements transform the film into a controlled emotional descent, not chaotic, but calculated, like turbulence deliberately engineered to reveal the truth about a fractured protagonist navigating the most dangerous flight of his life. The narrative engineering of non-stop operates with the precision and timing of an aircraft's flight computer. It is not a film that drifts or wanders. Every beat, every shift in suspicion, every acceleration in tension is meticulously designed to move the story forward with controlled urgency. The pacing begins not with speed, but with pressure, a slow tightening of emotional bolts. Bill Marx is introduced in quiet, heavy frames, his exhaustion carved into his posture. This deliberate slowness is intentional. It establishes a baseline rhythm the film will soon destabilize. The narrative initially feels methodical, almost mundane, which makes the subsequent escalation feel sharper, as though the viewer has been pushed from steady turbulence into a storm of compounding threats. One of the film's smartest narrative choices is the way it increments pressure rather than escalating too quickly. The first text Bill received from the anonymous antagonist arrived not with dramatic fanfare but with unnerving casualness. This technique mirrors real crises. They often begin with something that feels small, manageable, ambiguous. The story structure is built on this principle of progressive amplification. What starts as a mysterious message becomes a pattern, then a threat, then a public danger. Each stage raises a narrative stakes in a measurable, almost mathematical progression. This allows the pacing to feel tight without becoming overwhelming, giving the audience space to absorb the growing complexity. The film's midsection is where the structure becomes most intricate. This is a phase of narrative compression, the point at which multiple threads of the story begin to overlap, collide, and blur together. Suspicions rise among passengers, Bill's authority erodes, conflicting information floods a cabin, and the pressure of the bomb threat compresses all decision-making. The story mirrors the way actual crisis simulations work. Multiple variables spike simultaneously, forcing the protagonist to prioritize under duress. This dynamic gives the film its propulsive energy. The pacing does not simply accelerate, it oscillates, mimicking the psychological rhythms of panic and concentration. A core narrative engineering strategy in non-stop is the use of closed-loop storytelling The plane, as a setting, is a self-contained ecosystem. Every character is trapped, every clue is limited to that environment, every suspicion must be resolved within the same finite space. This structural choice forces a narrative to recycle tension through new angles. When Bill interviews one passenger, it shifts suspicion toward another. When he clears a suspect, the narrative refocuses the audience on someone else. The plot behaves like an investigative circuit, with each loop narrowing down possibilities while raising emotional stakes. This ensures the pacing remains taut, even when the film momentarily slows for dialogue-heavy exchanges. Another narrative technique the film utilizes masterfully is *** temporal compression ***. Most of the story unfolds in real time or near real time, which amplifies urgency. By minimizing time jumps and montage sequences, the film creates a sensation that events are unfolding second by second, leaving no space for emotional decompression. The characters and audience experience the crisis with synchronized tension. This real-time structure reinforces the illusion that the plane is not merely a backdrop but an active participant in the narrative mechanics, tightening the pacing like an invisible metronome. The screenplay structure also thrives on *** strategic misdirection ***. Suspicious glances, ambiguous lines of dialogue, unexpected camera angles, and out-of-context passenger behaviors all contribute to a shifting landscape of doubt. The pacing relies on this narrative fluidity, the sense that at any moment, the story could pivot toward a new suspect or reveal a new layer threat. The editing supports this uncertainty by cutting away from scenes at peak tension, prolonging the viewer's sense of anticipation. This technique echoes the structure of classical whodunits while adapting it to a modern, high-pressure thriller environment. The film's climax is constructed like a mechanical release of built-up narrative tension. All structural threads converge: the identity of the antagonist, the bomb threat, the collapsing cabin order, and Bill's psychological breaking point. The pacing reaches its peak here, but it never becomes chaotic. Instead, the climax feels like the inevitable result of the story's architectural foundation. Every previous suspicion, conflict, and emotional beat feeds into the moment the villain's plan is exposed. This convergence is not accidental. It is a product of a screenplay that ties its emotional arcs to its structural turning points. Bill's personal redemption and the narrative's external resolution occur in parallel, creating harmony between character and plot. A subtle but vital aspect of the film's pacing is how it balances *** internal and external conflict ***. On the surface, the story is about preventing violence, identifying a criminal, and managing airborne chaos. Beneath that, the narrative is propelled by Bill's emotional implosion, his guilt, anger, self-loathing, and buried grief rising to the surface under extreme pressure. The pacing shifts rhythmically between these two dimensions. Just as a new external threat emerges, the film pauses briefly to explore Bill's inner reactions: a shaky breath, a frustrated confession, a moment of vulnerability with Jen or Nancy. These emotional interludes prevent the pacing from feeling monotone, offering textured layers that make the plot feel human rather than mechanical. Another structural strength is the film's commitment to *** cause and effect storytelling ***. Each decision Bill makes leads to a new complication. When he isolates a passenger, panic among others grows. When he confronts a potential suspect too aggressively, he damages his own credibility. When he attempts to warn the pilots, it inadvertently escalates the villain's manipulation. This chain reaction design ensures that the pacing is not just driven by random events but by the logical consequences of character choices. The narrative becomes a study in crisis systems. One wrong action reverberates across the entire cabin ecosystem. The film's denouement, brief yet emotionally resonant, serves as a structural exhale. After nearly 90 minutes of escalating tension, the pacing finally releases its grip. The resolution is not overly sentimental or prolonged. Instead, it simply provides enough closure to re-establish emotional equilibrium. This final structural choice reinforces the film's disciplined approach to pacing. It accelerates with purpose, maintains its momentum with intention, and releases tension only when the narrative has fully earned it. Ultimately, the pacing and structure of *** exemplify how a thriller can sustain intensity without sacrificing coherence or emotional depth. The narrative is engineered with care, the escalation measured like the altitude of a flight path, the tension tightening with each narrative loop. The result is a story that feels both breathless and grounded, propulsive yet psychologically textured. The pacing does not merely entertain. It immerses, destabilizes, and mirrors a protagonist's unraveling mind as the aircraft hurtles forward through the night sky. Beneath its surface is a high-altitude action thriller, non-stop is a film deeply threaded with metaphors, emotional, political, psychological, and even financial. Its narrative is anchored in a tight, pressurized environment not just to create tension, but to externalize the internal turbulence of its protagonist. Every major symbol in the film revolves around one central truth. Crisis doesn't transform people. It reveals them. The plane becomes more than a setting. It's an emotional pressure chamber, a floating confessional, and ultimately a metaphor for a man suspended between guilt and redemption. This layered symbolism elevates the movie from a genre exercise to a character study disguised as an action spectacle. The most obvious metaphor is the aircraft itself. A plane in flight is a symbol of enforced trust. Hundreds of lives surrendered to one metal vessel, one predetermined route, and one chain of command. It echoes Bill Mark's inner conflict. He is a man who has lost trust in himself, yet is placed in a role that demands others trust him without question. As the story progresses, we see that the plane's altitude mirrors Bill's emotional distance from the world. At 30,000 feet, he is cut off from his past, from accountability, from escape. The cabin becomes a liminal space, neither here nor there, just like Bill's life suspended between trauma and recovery. When the passengers begin to suspect him, the symbolism sharpens. The plane becomes a microcosm of societal judgment, raising questions about how quickly public trust can collapse under fear. The antagonist's use of text messages operates as another thematic device. Communication in the film is invisible, digital, disembodied, reflecting modern anxieties about unseen threats and weaponized information. The villain never raises a gun until the climax. Instead, they weaponize ambiguity. This highlights a broader metaphor about the age of digital suspicion. Threats are no longer loud and obvious. They arrive quietly, through screens, through anonymous channels that feel personal yet untouchable. This mirrors real-world cybersecurity concerns where chaos can be triggered from a keyboard rather than a battlefield. The film subtly critiques how technology amplifies fear and how anonymity destabilizes emotional certainty. Bill's phone, constantly vibrating with dread, symbolizes a way unresolved trauma keeps intruding on the present. Every message acts like an echo of his past grief, the death of his daughter, his drowning guilt, his alcoholism. The texts aren't just instructions from a villain. They are reminders of the messages he never received, the apologies he never gave, the conversations cut short by tragedy. Through this lens, the villain becomes more than a physical threat. They are the embodiment of Bill's guilt manifesting in real time, forcing him to confront his failures under most unforgiving circumstances. Another important motif is oxygen. The plane's air pressure, cabin atmosphere, and the breathing patterns of the characters frequently signal psychological states. Bill's breathing becomes shaky whenever he faces a moment of emotional flashback. During turbulence, passengers grasp for breath, symbolizing collective panic. The oxygen mask represents survival through surrender. One must admit vulnerability in order to be saved. This is mirrored in Bill's emotional arc. He cannot regain control until he acknowledges his weakness. One of the most subtle symbolic shots is when Bill presses his forehead to the lavatory mirror after the panic moment, his breath fogging the glass. The condensation becomes a metaphor for emotional suffocation, his inner life fogging the clarity of the world around him. The bomb in the film is symbolic not just as a physical threat, but as a metaphor for compressed emotional trauma a pressure accumulating until it detonates. The ticking countdown mirrors the ticking of Bill's psychological clock. The film quietly asks, how long can a person hold themselves together before they explode? The passengers feel this metaphor too. Suspicion spreads like shrapnel, each rumor fragmenting trust. The plane becomes a powder keg not only because of an explosive device, but because fear is the most volatile substance in the cabin. The motif of crossing boundaries emerges strongly in the film's thematic architecture. The plane physically crosses international borders without landing, blurring the boundaries between safety and danger, truth and assumption, authority and suspicion. Bill's job as a federal air marshal is built on the idea of protection, but here he becomes a perceived threat. Thematically, the movie explores how identities shift under pressure and how the boundary between protector and villain becomes dangerously thin when public trust collapses. This blurring forces the audience to confront modern fears about institutions meant to defend them. The film also introduces a subtle financial metaphor through the $150 million extortion demand. While it may seem like a simple plot device, the money symbolizes ***, the cost of institutional failure ***. The villain frames their actions as a protest against the government's inadequacies, arguing that the system abandoned its citizens. The ransom, therefore, becomes an invoice addressed to society, an uncomfortable question about the price of security, the value of life, and the economics of fear. Even the insurance protocols for hijacking, though never explicitly detailed, linger in the background as a reminder that aviation tragedies are accounted for in spreadsheets long before they happen in reality. Another overarching metaphor is ***, gravity ***. Not the physical force, but the emotional one. Bill is constantly fighting to keep himself from plummeting, from losing control, losing credibility, losing hope. The plane's altitude represents how far he has drifted from emotional grounding. When the aircraft ultimately begins its uncontrolled descent in the climax, the symbolism becomes clear. Bill's inner world is crashing with it. Yet, his ability to stabilize both the aircraft and himself mirrors a thematic idea that redemption often happens in free fall, not in moments of stability. Crisis becomes a catalyst for clarity. The passengers themselves act as symbolic stand-in for the public conscience. Together, they represent societal reactions under pressure, fearful, judgmental, hopeful, sometimes irrational. Each passenger archetype echoes a different facet of human behavior when trust erodes: paranoia, compliance, empathy, self-preservation. Bill, in turn, becomes a vessel through which the audience examines how heroes are both constructed and dismantled in real time. The film quietly comments on the fragile nature of reputation and how quickly a narrative can be rewritten when ordinary people feel threatened. Ultimately, ***** is a movie about **** the search for solid ground in a world that feels increasingly unstable ***. It uses flight as a metaphor for emotional dislocation, digital threats as metaphor for invisible fear, and crisis as a metaphor for personal rebirth. Beneath the adrenaline and spectacle, the film is telling a story about a man learning to breathe again, learning to trust himself at an altitude where the air is thin and the stakes are unforgiving. And in that symbolic journey, the audience finds a reflection of their own anxieties about control, uncertainty, and the high cost of carrying unresolved pain through the narrow aisles of life. At first glance, **** may seem like a film limited by location: one aircraft cabin, one altitude, one continuous crisis. But the remarkable accomplishment of the cinematography is how it transformed constraint into opportunity, engineering a visual environment that feels both expansive and claustrophobic at once. The entire film leverages a careful interplay of lens physics, color science, and spatial geometry to turn tight quarters into a dynamic emotional landscape. The visual engineering is never flashy. Instead, it is quietly intelligent, using subtle optical decisions to construct tension, control pace, and deepen our psychological connection to Bill Mark's fraying inner world. What appears simple is actually a meticulously orchestrated dance between sensor, light, and movement. Much of the film's visual identity stems from its use of **** long lenses in tight spaces ***, an approach that would seem counterintuitive for a cramped cabin, yet one that yields extraordinary emotional results. Telephoto compression visually pulls characters closer together, strengthening a sense of paranoia and shared vulnerability. When Bill scans a cabin, everyone appears almost uncomfortably near, as if suspicion itself was shrinking the space. The audience feels a physical pressure through optical compression. This is cinematography functioning as emotional engineering. The camera isn't just observing the crisis, it is shaping it, tightening the psychological screws frame by frame. Conversely, when the film wants to emphasize Bill's isolation, it shifts to *** wide lenses *** that stretch the geometry of the cabin, enlarging the emptiness around him. It's a brilliant optical metaphor. The same plane that feels suffocating in one moment becomes cavernous and unwelcoming in the next. This dynamic lens strategy reflects the elasticity of anxiety. Fear makes the world close in, guilt makes it pull away. The visual philosophy follows a protagonist's mental state with scientific precision. Through lens behavior alone, the film allows the viewer to inhabit Bill's shifting sense of scale. Sometimes trapped, sometimes floating, always unsettled. Lighting engineering is equally intentional. Aircraft cabins are notoriously difficult environments for film lighting due to reflective surfaces, limited overhead options, and strict spatial confines. But nonstop solves this challenge by integrating practical lighting the plane's own built-in illumination, as a core part of the visual language. This creates not only authenticity but also a subtle psychological neutrality. The lighting feels corporate, cold, regulated, mirroring the impersonal world of air travel. No shadows deep enough to hide in, no warmth to cling to. Bill exists in a universe of perpetual midtones, which visually symbolizes his emotional numbness and inability to escape his internal fog. As tension escalates, lighting becomes increasingly directional adding harder edges to Bill's face. His world sharpens, the stakes sharpen, and the light sharpens with them. In several close-ups, the camera captures micro-reflections in his eyes, tiny glint of cabin lights that resemble both imprisonment and awakening. These small optical details create a subconscious connection between the audience and the character's inner turbulence. Cinematography becomes an instrument for reading psychological metrics in real time. Movement is another key engineering tool. Early in the film, the camera remains mostly stabilized, echoing the supposed normality of the flight. But once the extortion texts begin, the film adopts handheld micro-movements almost imperceptible vibrations that mimic the nervous sway of standing on unstable emotional ground. This vibration aligns with the plane's natural hum, blending diegetic physicality with emotional instability. In doing so, the film blurs a line between the turbulence outside the aircraft and the turbulence inside Bill's mind. The motion design becomes a psychological accelerometer, measuring the rising anxiety through optical microshifts. The color science of the film deserves particular attention. Nonstop leans heavily into a palette dominated by steely blues, muted grays, and sterile whites, a chromatic language that evokes both aviation professionalism and emotional detachment. The blues subtly shift temperature throughout the film, cooling further as suspicion grows, then warming slightly in moments of truth or human connection. It's a delicate chromatic gradient that mirrors internal transformation. Color grading operates like an emotional algorithm, adjusting the audience's psychological temperature in real time. The film also uses contrast engineering as a narrative tool. Mid-tone compression in the early scenes give the cabin a flat, almost bureaucratic feel. But as secrets begin to surface, contrast gently increases, giving the environment more definition, like a mind becoming hyper-aware under stress. Shadows deepen around suspicious characters, not through artificial theatrics, but through natural follow created by blocking and lens choice. This creates subtle visual cues that guide audience suspicion, without overt manipulation. It's not about pointing the camera at the guilty. It's about positioning the light so that everyone carries a potential for guilt. Spatial composition is handled with remarkable intelligence for such a constrained environment. Seats, rows, luggage bins, aisles, and partitions all serve as visual barriers shaping the tension through geometric division. When Bill becomes a suspected hijacker, he is frequently framed behind seat backs or through layers of foreground obstruction, visually imprisoned by the same space he is trying to protect. These visual obstructions reflect social obstructions, judgment, distrust, isolation. Geometry becomes narrative. The cabin's narrow aisles play a critical visual role as well. During confrontations, the camera stacks bodies vertically along the aisle, emphasizing human density and rising panic. When Bill must physically contain a threat, the proximity amplifies the tension. There's simply nowhere to run, no safe distance to create. This is visual engineering through limitation. The film uses a cabin's architecture as a mathematical constraint to calculate intensity. One of the film's most brilliant visual strategies is how it handles the digital text messages from the antagonist. Instead of using external overlays or flashy digital interfaces, the film integrates the text into a subtle diegetic visualization that hovers within Bill's line of sight. This maintains immersion while providing a consistent aesthetic language. The floating text appears clean, monochromatic, and sterile, mirroring the cold anonymity of the threat. Visually, the messages behave like invasive thoughts, intruding into Bill's perception without disrupting the physical continuity of the space. When the film reaches its explosive climax, the cinematography shifts once more, adopting chaotic handheld movement and heightened contrast to simulate disorientation. The descent becomes a visual free fall, with the camera vibrating violently as if mirroring the collapsing emotional structure inside Bill. The world shakes, light streaks, angles skew, and for a moment, the visuals behave like the last panic beats of a destabilizing psyche. Then, when the plane stabilizes, the camera stills, breathing returns, and the visual field regains structure, symbolizing cautious emotional recalibration. Ultimately, **** demonstrates that high-quality cinematography is not about spectacle, it's about precision. It is about understanding that lens physics can articulate fear, that color grading can express guilt, that light fall-off can measure trust, and that movement can reflect emotional velocity. In this way, 1-0 sound design and music production, Nonstop 2014. Sound is a hidden architecture of ***, a constant, invisible force shaping tension, trust, and emotional velocity. In a film set almost entirely inside a sealed aircraft cabin, sound design becomes not just an artistic choice but a survival mechanism for the narrative. Every frequency, every vibration, every mechanical hum carries psychological meaning. The brilliance of **** lies in how it treats sound as both a physical presence and a narrative signal, engineering a sonic environment that echoes Bill Mark's internal turbulence while amplifying the claustrophobia of the space around him. The audio landscape is not simply heard, it is felt like pressure under the ribs. The bass line of the film's soundscape is a constant *** drone of the jet engine's ***, a low-frequency bed that forms the emotional gravity of the story. Engine hum exists at a frequency that occupies a lower register of human hearing, often felt more than perceived. It creates a subconscious sense of confinement, reminding the audience that escape is impossible, altitude is absolute, and danger is sealed within metal walls. This sonic bed operates like the emotional static in Bill's mind, present, unrelenting, vibrating beneath every thought. Sound design transforms the aircraft into a character in its own right, speaking through vibration and resonance. One of the most innovative sonic choices is the use of *** microdynamic shifts *** to mirror psychological escalation. When Bill receives the first cryptic text, the engine hum subtly dips, creating a vacuum-like moment as though the air itself reacts to his panic. These near-imperceptible shifts act as emotional punctuation. Sound becomes a data point that measures stress. As threats escalate, high frequencies sharpen, seating noise increases, and the metallic creaks of the cabin intensify. It is as if the aircraft senses attention and begins to speak in anxious metallic whispers. The text messages themselves have a sharply engineered audio identity. Their notification tone is deliberately dry, cool, and unmelodic, a sonic representation of emotional detachment. Unlike melodramatic pings or dramatic stingers, these alerts sound neutral, almost bureaucratic. This neutrality becomes unsettling. The absence of emotional coloration makes the threat feel more calculated, more surgical. The sound design transforms each incoming message into a psychological strike, clean, cold, and uncomfortably intimate. It feels less like a phone notification and more like a digital heartbeat pulsing inside Bill's chest. Dialogue engineering in ** nonstop** is an impressive technical feat given the acoustics of a real aircraft cabin. Metal walls, narrow corridors, and hard surfaces create strong reflective patterns that can muddy dialogue. To overcome this, the sound team uses a blend of ADR, automated dialogue replacement, and on-set capture, shaping each voice to remain crisp while still maintaining a slight reflective quality. This keeps the dialogue authentic to the environment while ensuring intelligibility. The result is a sound field where voices always sound a little too close, a little too present, mirroring the lack of personal space inside a packed aircraft. But the film also uses *** strategic silence *** as a weapon. In heightened moments, when Bill confronts a potential suspect, or when panic begins to rise, the sound design temporarily pulls back environmental noise. The engine hum thins, background chatter fades, the sonic world tightens like a constricting throat. This is not literal silence, but psychological silence. The world narrows to Bill's immediate fear. Humans often experience threat through auditory exclusion, our brains filtering out lower priority sounds, and ** nonstop** recreates this biological response through cinematic engineering. Music plays a complementary role, never overwhelming the sound design but weaving around it with precision. The score uses rhythmic pulses, low-frequency drones, and percussive motifs that mimic heartbeats or turbine rhythms. The composer understands that melody would soften the tone. Instead, the music adopts a minimalist, almost mechanical identity. Its patterns resemble aviation rhythms, steady oscillations, rising propulsion-like crescendos, and subtle syncopations that echo the tempo of crisis. Music becomes an extension of the aircraft, as if the metal hull itself were generating the score. During moments of revelation or emotional exposure, the music shifts from mechanical pulses to warmer, more human tones. Soft strings or gentle synth beds appear, creating a temporary emotional runway for Bill to land on. These moments are rare, which gives them power. When the score briefly warms, it feels like oxygen entering a suffocating cabin. This contrast between mechanical and organic sonics mirrors the film's core metaphor, a man battling to rediscover humanity inside the cold machinery of his guilt and duty. Spatial audio design also plays a crucial role. The plane is mapped acoustically with precision. Different zones, first class, coach, galleys, aisles, lavatories, have unique acoustic signatures. Narrow spaces create tight reflections. The aisle produces elongated reverberation. The forward galley has a harsher metallic resonance. When Bill moves, the audio shifts accordingly, subtly guiding the viewer through spatial orientation. This is sound functioning as acoustic geometry a way to give shape to a location that could otherwise feel monotonous. Fight scenes are engineered with remarkable restraint. Instead of overcrank Hollywood punches, the sound design favors realistic impact softened by confined space. Skin on fabric rustles, thuds dampened by seats, muffled collisions against narrow surfaces. All these choices maintain immersion. It feels less like an action sequence and more like chaotic survival within a pressurized tube of humanity. Sound sells the desperation more than the choreography. The climax, when the plane plummets toward the ground, features some of the film's most sophisticated sound engineering. Turbulence is expressed not just visually but sonically. Roaring frequencies rise, wind shears screams through tiny gaps, metal groans like a wounded animal. The sound field becomes unstable, unbalanced, slamming from channel to channel like a storm trapped in a jar. And in the midst of this chaos, dialogue is carefully carved out through frequency sculpting, ensuring that human connection still cuts through the noise. After the plane stabilizes, the soundscape softens dramatically. Engine hum calms, metallic rattle subsides, and the sonic temperature warms ever so slightly. The audience hears the cabin breathe again. It is a return to equilibrium not just for the aircraft but for Bill. Sound becomes an emotional exhale. Ultimately, the sound design and music of **** serve as an auditory chronicle of tension, guilt, fear, and fleeting moments of hope. This is sound as psychological storytelling, engineer-driven, emotionally intelligent, and seamlessly integrated with the film's thematic architecture. By the time the credits roll, the audience realizes they didn't just watch Bill's journey. They heard it in every vibration, every frequency, every carefully sculpted beat suspended above the clouds. The marketing of **** exemplifies a meticulously engineered campaign where analytics, psychological insight, and creative messaging converge. Unlike traditional action films that rely primarily on spectacle-driven teasers, the promotional strategy for this high-altitude thriller treated the audience as a data-driven experiment in anticipation and suspense. Universal Pictures leveraged demographic segmentation, social media testing, and targeted influencer campaigns to create a sense of urgency before the first frame ever reached theaters. Every touchpoint was calculated to maximize engagement and ROI, reflecting the financial sophistication increasingly demanded by mid- to high-budget Hollywood productions. Pre-release strategy focused heavily on teasing the film's central mystery without revealing plot resolutions. Early trailers highlighted Liam Neeson as Bill Marks navigating tension in a confined airplane cabin, emphasizing suspense, mystery, and psychological stakes. This approach is a textbook application of *** consumer anticipation management ***. By strategically withholding narrative resolution, the marketing generated curiosity, repeat trailer views, and heightened social sharing. Each trailer variant was tested against different demographic cohorts to measure CPM efficiency, engagement duration, and social sentiment, optimizing the campaign for maximum attention per marketing dollar spent. Universal employed a dual-channel strategy combining traditional media, television spots, outdoor posters, print, with digital-first campaigns. On social platforms, micro-content clips were segmented for different psychographic profiles, anxiety-driven suspense for thriller enthusiasts, character-focused narratives for drama-oriented audiences, and action-centric snippets for younger, engagement-prone viewers. This segmentation allowed precise targeting while reducing wasted impressions. Marketing managers applied predictive algorithms to determine which type of content converted curiosity into ticket purchase, effectively treating the campaign like a real-time A/B testing laboratory. Influencer partnerships were also a significant component. The studio collaborated with aviation enthusiasts, crime or thriller bloggers, and pop culture commentators to create authentic discourse about cabin safety, hijacking scenarios, and psychological suspense. These discussions amplified organic engagement, essentially converting thought leaders into micro-marketing channels. The IOI here is notable. Earned media and social amplification often exceed paid impressions, especially in a psychologically charged narrative that encourages debate about morality, vigilance, and trust. Another innovative element was *** geo-targeted promotions ** tied to flight hubs and airline partnerships. Key cities with high traveler volumes, especially those known for international transit, were targeted with outdoor ads near airports, integrating the film's premise with real-world relevance. These strategic placements enhanced the sense of emotion, subtly associating the narrative stakes of the film with audiences' personal travel experiences, thereby reinforcing emotional and cognitive engagement before release. Email marketing and CRM strategies also contributed to early engagement metrics. Existing fan bases of Liam Neeson and thriller franchises were segmented by prior ticket purchases, genre preference, and geographic location. Personalized messaging, countdowns, and exclusive behind-the-scenes content incentivized advanced ticket purchases. By the time the first trailer appeared on broadcast and social media, these core audiences were already emotionally primed, improving opening weekend box office performance and lowering overall cost per acquisition. Analytics-driven pre-release testing extended beyond engagement to ** narrative resonance **. Universal conducted focus groups analyzing audience comprehension of suspense sequences, likability of Bill Marks, and the perceived clarity of the antagonist threat. Subtle adjustments were made to trailer edits, emphasizing tension and character empathy where data indicated viewers needed more clarity. This demonstrates a sophisticated integration of behavioral psychology into marketing strategy, narrative elements optimized not only for aesthetic appeal but for cognitive and emotional conversion. Post-release, the studio continued employing analytical rigor to sustain audience momentum. Social sentiment tracking monitored hashtags, discussions, and sentiment polarity to identify regions and demographics underperforming in engagement. Supplemental digital clips, interviews, and behind-the-scenes videos were deployed in response, creating an ** dynamic, adaptive marketing cycle **. This approach extended the theatrical window and bolstered early streaming interest, maximizing both immediate box office IOI and long-term licensing value. Global marketing strategy reflected financial and cultural considerations. Localized trailers and subtitled content targeted European, Asian, and Latin American markets, where Liam Neeson's star power and action thriller appetite were highest. Predictive models projected regional growth potential, guiding ad spend allocation in a manner akin to financial portfolio management. Resources were shifted dynamically to maximize expected returns. This demonstrates how Hollywood increasingly blends creative storytelling with investment-grade analytics to optimize revenue. Merchandising, while not central to ** nonstop **, leveraged subtle cross-brand opportunities. Travel-related products, airline collaborations, and tactical gear brands were integrated into promotional bundles. Even if small in scale, these partnerships reflect the holistic approach to ROI, demonstrating that every ancillary revenue channel, from brand integration to licensing, was considered in the film commercial ecosystem. Another hallmark of the campaign was the ** psychological alignment of messaging with the film's narrative **. Key promotional taglines, emphasizing suspense, personal stakes, and the impossibility of escape were designed to prime audiences' fight-or-flight instincts. Cognitive load theory suggests that fear and uncertainty heighten engagement, improving memory retention and increasing the likelihood of social sharing. Marketing leveraged these principles without making the experience manipulative, showing a sophisticated blend of behavioral science, narrative alignment, and audience psychology. Ultimately, the marketing strategy and audience analytics for *nonstop* demonstrate a convergence of creativity, technology, and financial prudence. Every element, from content segmentation and influencer collaboration to geo-targeted ads and predictive modeling, served to amplify engagement while minimizing wasted spend. The campaign transformed psychological insights into measurable economic outcomes, highlighting that the modern blockbuster is as much a study in human behavior and market engineering as it is in storytelling. It ensured that the suspense experience on screen began long before the first frame and resonated across multiple channels, yielding both emotional impact and financial success. Upon release, *nonstop* received generally positive responses from both critics and audiences, though it was often evaluated through the lens of Liam Neeson's growing action thriller persona. Critics noted the film's masterful manipulation of claustrophobic tension, its disciplined pacing, and the immersive technical craft, praising how a single-location thriller could sustain engagement without resorting to exaggerated spectacle. From a financial perspective, this alignment between critical reception and star-driven audience appeal was instrumental in achieving box office success, validating the studio's marketing strategy and ROI projections. Aggregate critical metrics indicate a strong approval rating, Rotten Tomatoes approximate 80%, reflecting a consensus that the film excelled in suspense construction and performance execution. Metacritic scores, approximate 65 or 100, suggest that while some critics found the plot predictable, the technical achievements, cinematography, sound engineering, and editing were widely recognized as elevating the material beyond standard thriller fare. Audience scores skewed higher, evidencing the powerful alignment between viewer expectation management and experimental payoff, particularly among demographics historically responsive to Neeson-led suspense films. Financially, the critical reception bolstered secondary revenue streams. Positive reviews, particularly emphasizing tight pacing and high-concept suspense, directly influenced pre-sale tickets, streaming deals, and international licensing negotiations. Studios increasingly recognize that critical approval functions as a form of brand capitalization, improving syndication potential and longevity on digital platforms. In this sense, reviews operate as intangible assets, converting cultural credibility into measurable financial impact. Awards recognition, though modest, reinforce a film's technical prestige. The sound design, cinematography, and editing was cited in multiple industry guild discussions, while Liam Neeson's nuanced performance was often singled out in genre-specific accolades. Although *nonstop* was not positioned for major mainstream awards, its acknowledgement by peer organizations validates its craftsmanship. These micro-awards serve as benchmarks for institutional recognition, enhancing the film's long-term brand equity, which is particularly important in catalog valuation for streaming and licensing markets. The legacy forecast of *nonstop* can be analyzed through multiple lenses. From a narrative perspective, the film exemplifies a high-altitude thriller template, a confined setting, a morally complex protagonist, and tension derived from interpersonal distrust rather than overt spectacle. This structural model has already influenced subsequent productions, establishing a precedent for economy-of-space storytelling in action cinema. Future filmmakers studying suspense mechanics, spatial tension, or resource-efficient production design will likely reference this film as a case study in marrying narrative intensity with constrained logistics. Technologically, the legacy of *nonstop* lies in its demonstration of integrating cinematography, sound, and editing as a unified emotional instrument. The successful translation of confined space tension into immersive cinematic experience illustrates the ROI potential of technical innovation. Studios and investors can observe that precision engineering, whether through lens choice, sound design, or spatial blocking, can yield high audience satisfaction and critical acknowledgement without exponential budget increases. This is a crucial lesson in balancing artistic ambition with economic prudence. Audience analytics post-release indicate sustained interest in repeat viewings, particularly in streaming environments where confined setting thrillers perform well. These analytics are critical for forecasting residual revenue, digital rentals, subscriptions, and syndication licensing. The film's high engagement rate suggests that its suspense-driven design and psychological resonance create durable cultural capital, effectively extending its monetization window beyond theatrical release. This is evidence of long-term IOI derived from thoughtfully calibrated narrative tension and audience experience. Thematically, Nonstop has carved a niche as a study in human psychology under duress, particularly in emergency and high-stakes environments. Its depiction of authority, suspicion, and moral ambiguity resonates with both general audiences and professionals studying crisis management, behavioral psychology, or aviation safety. Educational institutions and streaming platforms with specialized audiences may continue to reference the film as a practical example of narrative-applied behavioral science, increasing its relevance as an educational asset alongside entertainment value. Cultural influence is also evident in genre evolution. Subsequent thrillers and high-stakes action films have borrowed from Nonstop model, single-location tension, protagonist isolation, and reliance on suspense over spectacle. The film's success demonstrated that audience engagement does not always require large-scale destruction or multiple set pieces. Intelligent pacing, psychological stakes, and technical craft can deliver compelling experiences, inspiring a wave of resource-efficient, story-driven thrillers in mid-budget production tiers. Merchandising and cross-brand visibility have been modest but notable. Aviation-related brands, travel safety campaigns, and thriller-related lifestyle promotions have occasionally referenced the film, indicating residual commercial impact beyond the cinematic narrative. While not blockbuster-scale licensing, these touches reinforce the film's cultural footprint and contribute to a diversified revenue ecosystem, demonstrating how a film's legacy can manifest in both cognitive and financial dimensions. Syndication and streaming potential remain strong. As audiences increasingly seek high-intensity thrillers with psychological depth, Nonstop maintains relevance as a model of tension-engineered storytelling. Its catalog value is enhanced by consistent critical and audience recognition, technical pedigree, and style-led branding. For studios, it represents a sustainable asset that can be monetized multiple times across different platforms and formats, reinforcing the principle that narrative and technical alignment produces durable financial and cultural capital. Ultimately, Nonstop illustrate a successful convergence of narrative discipline, technical innovation, star power, and marketing intelligence. Critical reception validates the craftsmanship, awards and guild recognition confirm industry respect, audience analytics forecast enduring engagement, and financial modeling predicts long-term returns. The film's legacy lies not in spectacle alone, but in its demonstration that precision-engineered suspense, thoughtful technical investment, and psychological realism together create a high-value cinematic property that resonates with viewers, investors, and creators alike. Nonstop is more than a confined thriller set at 30,000 feet. It is an exemplar of how art, technology, and capital can converge into a seamless cinematic experience. At its core, the film demonstrates that narrative tension, technical innovation, and financial strategy are not separate considerations but mutually reinforcing dimensions. Every creative choice, lens, lighting, sound, pacing, and performance is calibrated not only to engage emotionally but to maximize operational efficiency and audience retention. The result is a film that satisfies the human desire for suspense while validating the meticulous investment of time, talent, and capital. From an artistic perspective, Nonstop crafts suspense with surgical precision. The screenplay balances mystery, character development, and plot mechanics so that every beat serves multiple functions, advancing story, revealing psychology, and creating tension. Bill Mark's journey embodies both literal and symbolic ascent and descent. The confined setting forces narrative economy, proving that limitations, far from constraining creativity, can serve as accelerators of ingenuity. Every visual frame, every auditory cue, every interaction is deliberate, contributing to a fully integrated emotional architecture. Technologically, the film stands as a model of intelligent engineering. Camera selection, lens compression, color grading, spatial composition, and sound design all function as tools to amplify human experience. The cinematography transforms a plane into a psychological instrument. The sound design translates anxiety into palpable vibrations, and the editing dictates the rhythm of emotional engagement. These technological decisions are not ancillary. They are central to storytelling, demonstrating how modern filmmaking relies on a deep understanding of both human perception and machine capability. Capital considerations are woven tightly into the film's DNA. The budget was deployed efficiently, leveraging a single location set, careful stunt coordination, and focused marketing campaigns. Pre-release analytics informed trailer strategy, social targeting, and audience segmentation, ensuring a predictable ROI and sustained post-theatrical engagement. Merchandise and ancillary brand integration, though modest, complemented the core revenue model. **** illustrates how financial intelligence, when combined with narrative and technical strategy, converts creative ambition into tangible return on investment. Psychological and behavioral insights are another dimension of this harmony. By studying audience response and designing suspense around realistic cognitive reactions, fear, suspicion, moral ambiguity, the film aligns its artistic goals with measurable engagement metrics. Bill Mark's decisions, emotional responses, and vulnerabilities mirror universal human behaviors under pressure, enabling audiences to connect viscerally with the story. This synergy between narrative psychology and audience analytics is a prime example of how film can simultaneously educate, engage, and entertain. The thematic architecture reinforces this integration. The plane, the text, the confined environment, and the ticking bomb all operate as symbolic mechanisms, echoing the film's concerns about trust, isolation, and personal accountability. These motifs are amplified by cinematography and sound, creating a multi-layered experience in which every technical choice supports both emotional resonance and thematic clarity. The audience is not merely watching a story, they are inhabiting the psychological ecosystem crafted by art and engineered by technology. Marketing and audience engagement strategies complete the circuit of capital intelligence. Pre-release segmentation, adaptive trailer testing, influencer partnerships, and geo-targeted campaigns ensured the film reached audiences most likely to respond. Post-release analytics sustained engagement, guided additional content, and extended the film's financial life cycle through digital rentals, streaming, and licensing. These decisions demonstrate that in contemporary Hollywood, art and technology cannot be divorced from business strategy. Each is amplified by the others, creating a holistic system of value. The film's performance, critical acclaim, audience engagement, financial success, and cultural influence illustrates the power of aligning creative, technical, and economic considerations. Each domain feeds the other. Artistic choices enhance audience satisfaction, technical innovation amplifies narrative impact, and data-driven marketing ensures financial sustainability. **** exemplifies a rare harmony where constraints inspire innovation, human psychology informs structure, and financial prudence underwrites experimentation. In doing so, it offers a blueprint for how modern cinema can function as an integrated ecosystem of art, tech, and capital. Beyond its immediate achievements, the film leaves a legacy in multiple arenas. For aspiring filmmakers, it provides a masterclass in working within constraints while maintaining emotional intensity. For production managers and investors, it demonstrates how strategic allocation of resources, data-informed marketing, and cross-platform monetization create lasting value. For audiences, it delivers a suspenseful experience that is psychologically rich and viscerally engaging. The alignment of these outcomes demonstrates the predictive power of disciplined, intelligent filmmaking when all elements are harmonized. In essence, **** is a study in deliberate orchestration. Narrative, performance, cinematography, sound, and marketing are not isolated silos. They are interdependent gears in a finely tuned machine. Every choice is optimized for emotional impact, operational efficiency, and financial return. The film proves that excellence in one domain amplifies outcomes across others, creating a cinematic product that is both compelling and economically sustainable. Finally, the emotional resonance of the film is inseparable from its technical and financial architecture. Suspense, empathy, moral tension, and resolution are delivered through precision-engineered visual, auditory, and narrative devices. The audience experiences not only the story but the consequences of meticulously planned creative, technological, and financial decisions. It is a cinematic experience that teaches as it entertains, demonstrating the invisible work that underlies every moment of tension and release. If you found this deep dive meaningful, my literature-loving friends, consider liking and subscribing so we can keep decoding the business and beauty of cinema together. In **nonstop**, every prop, every camera angle, every beat of suspense exists at the intersection of human psychology, technological capability, and capital strategy, a masterclass in the harmonious integration of art, tech, and finance that defines contemporary filmmaking.